You know, when we talk about homelessness, our minds usually jump to one thing, the lack of a house. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. What we're going to explore today is the hidden crisis beneath the surface. For hundreds of thousands of Americans, this isn't just about housing. It's a daily life or death battle against a cascade of dangers that feed on each other. So let's break down what that really means. First, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this. It's staggering. The latest report from the Department of Housing and Urban Development says that on any given night, there are over 500,000 people experiencing homelessness. 580,000 people. To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire population of a city like Atlanta or Sacramento. But here's where the numbers get even more stark. Look at this breakdown. Yeah, 60% are in some kind of shelter, but a massive 40%, nearly half, are completely unsheltered. We're talking about people living on sidewalks, in parks, in their cars, or under bridges, with absolutely no protection. This is where the risk just skyrockets. And this image right here, this isn't an abstract number. This is the reality for that 40%. It's a constant state of exposure. Exposure to the weather, to illness, to violence. See, this isn't just about not having a home. It's about having nowhere, absolutely nowhere, to be safe. Okay, so the scale is huge. We get that. But that's only half the story. To really understand what's going on, we have to look at the brutal, personal experience of living it day to day. This is where we see how dangers don't just add up. They multiply. They create this vicious cycle that is incredibly, incredibly difficult to break. For starters, the environment itself becomes an enemy. In the winter, freezing temperatures aren't just uncomfortable, they can be fatal, especially when you're dealing with wet clothes you can't dry. Then, in the summer, big cities turn into these urban heat islands, basically giant ovens, leading to deadly heat stroke. Without four walls, the weather literally becomes a weapon. And that constant exposure leads directly to a massive health crisis. I mean, look at these numbers. A jaw-dropping 78% of unhoused people have chronic health conditions, and you've got almost half dealing with mental illness. Just imagine trying to manage diabetes without a fridge for your insulin, or trying to take medication on a strict schedule when you don't even know where you'll sleep tonight. A condition that would be manageable for most of us quickly becomes a life-threatening emergency. On top of all that, there's the constant threat of violence, and the data here is just shocking. People experiencing homelessness are 5 times more likely to be victims of a violent crime. 5 times. It's a direct consequence of being completely exposed, totally vulnerable, and unfortunately, being seen as an easy target. And this is where we see how all those dangers truly compound. This is the vicious cycle in action. It can start with something so small, something you wouldn't even think about, like a simple insect bite. But without access to clean water or a bandage, it gets infected. That infection leads to a fever. The fever makes you disoriented, weak, an easier target. And that vulnerability can lead to an assault, which causes even more injury, and the cycle just spirals downward, and it spirals fast. You know, this quote from an advocate who has actually lived this reality, it just says it all. This isn't a choice. It is a matter of survival. When the elements are against you and the system is at capacity, every single night is a gamble. Okay, so we've seen the immediate physical dangers, but that leads to a really critical question. If life on the streets is so perilous, why is it so damn hard to escape? Well, the answer lies in a series of invisible, systemic barriers that literally trap people in place. Because it has almost nothing to do with a lack of will or effort. Not at all. It's about being caught in a bureaucratic nightmare, an invisible wall that's almost perfectly designed to keep people out. And that nightmare actually has a name: administrative erasure. This is a concept that is absolutely central to understanding this crisis. It's when the very systems that are supposed to help you, Social Security, healthcare, employment, they can't even see you. Why? Because you don't have the right paperwork. You're effectively erased. And this builds into this impossible, maddening loop, a true catch-22. Think about it. To get a new state ID, you need your birth certificate. But to order a copy of your birth certificate, you need a valid ID. And to get either of them mailed to you, well, you need a mailing address, which is the one thing you don't have. It's a perfect, paralyzing trap. There's no way out. So without these basic documents, you can't open a bank account. You can't cash a paycheck if you manage to get one. You can't apply for a job or an apartment. You're not just poor. You are, for all practical purposes, administratively erased. You're locked out of society itself.
So, yeah, it sounds incredibly bleak, and it is. But here's the good news. The situation is not hopeless. Not at all. There are proven, effective strategies that don't just manage homelessness, they can end it. So, let's look at the path forward.
This right here. This is the problem we're trying to solve. It's not a statistic. It's a person, a human being, facing isolation, danger, and a system that has failed them. And this is the goal. This is what the solution actually looks like. It's not just a roof. It's stability. It's safety. It's community. It's the solid foundation from which a person can finally start to rebuild their life. So how do we get there? Well, the most effective solutions are all built on one core philosophy: housing first. And it's this radical flip of the old way of thinking. Instead of demanding people solve all their other problems before they can get housing, this approach provides housing first. That becomes the stable base to begin addressing everything else. And guess what? It works. Study after study shows it dramatically increases housing stability, and it's actually more cost-effective than managing this crisis on the streets. So here's the blueprint. You provide housing immediately, without forcing people to jump through a million hoops. You surround them with the services they actually need: trauma-informed care, healthcare, counseling. You stop punishing people for being poor and instead invest in real solutions. And crucially, you make sure they're included in all city emergency plans so they are never, ever left behind again. Ultimately, this all requires a fundamental shift in our thinking, and it's captured perfectly by this idea. Housing is not a reward for getting your life together. Housing is what helps you get your life together. It reframes the entire issue, doesn't it? It's not about a personal failing to be punished, but a systemic crisis that we can solve, with a foundation of safety, dignity, and a place to call home.